Good morning and welcome to Manitoba Agriculture Crop Talk webinar. If you have any questions during the presentation today, please type them into the Q&A icon on your Zoom toolbar and we'll get to them at the end of each presentation. This webinar is being recorded and you will receive a link to the recording. Thank you.
Thanks, Lori. I'd like to welcome everybody to the October 2nd edition of Crop Talk. And in this week's Crop Talk, we're going to look again a little bit more about fall weed control. We had Kim on last week and she went over a bunch of the products we could do to maybe spray out some of the weeds and get control of some of them. She went through some weed identification, and I thought me and Kim thought it'd be great to get Gowan to come on and talk about their products as they are probably one of the most used products in the fall for weed control preparation for next year. And we're glad to have Wes Lewis on. He's the Manitoba sales rep, and Wes is from the Manitoba area, and he's going to go through a lot of the products Gowan has and how to use them properly. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Wes. Wes, you can grab the screen here and start your presentation.
Okay, thanks, Lionel. Kim, appreciate the time. Hello, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. Is that everyone can see the main screen there?
If you could put it, oh yeah, it looks really good. Looks great.
Yeah, it's in presentation mode, so.
You got it.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you for inviting me on today. As Lionel said, my name is Wes Lewis. I'm the Manitoba sales rep for Gowan. Just a little background with me. I started with Gowan mid-June of this season. And yeah, so had my feet wet with the Gowan products. This is going to be my first fall with application. But I've got some really good resources, and I've had a lot of my growers through my history in ag. So it's been over 16 years in the ag industry. So I've got some experience, and we'll kind of go through Avidex, Fortress, and Edge, the main products that we'd be looking at for fall application for weed control moving into the 2025 season. So objectives within Gowan, so obviously help growers manage weed resistance through the 2025 crop year, but not just through then, just manage weed resistance in general. So give you the tools and confidence to use Gowan products this fall/spring, and really just set expectations for growers and industry on going into 2025 about these products. Sorry, someone keeps calling me here. So who are we? So Gowan is a family-owned company. So we're headquartered in Yuma, Arizona. Family-run business. John Jensen was the founder, and they really are a grower-focused company. Proud of their Muddy Boots history. So when they say Muddy Boots, they really do mean it. They want us walking fields, interacting with growers, getting dirty, and figure out solutions for growers. So we have over 1,600 employees across multiple countries with sales. So just a brief little tidbit, what that looks like in Canada. So as you can see from this picture, so we have 3 development people. So Mike, Phil, Glenda. Our country head is Ralph Pessman. And then on the commercial side, there's 11 reps across Canada. And then Dean Hirenak is kind of our director of commercial operations. When you look at the full lineup, these are with the exception that I'm going to talk about, Avidex, Fortress, and Edge. These are the other products that we have in the market. They all have unique fits. An Insight and would be one that would have a really good fit for weed management or resistant weed management. But I can maybe touch on that at a later point. But what I'm here to talk about today is so Avidex, Fortress, and Edge. So really maximizing yields today, managing your resistance for tomorrow. So when we think of these 3 products, what I think about is the problem weeds that come to mind. So kind of the main driver weeds that I've noticed through the last few years, in my previous role and through this year. So kochia was it's been a big problem for a number of years now. But with the development of multiple resistant biotypes out there, it's becoming a more difficult and challenging weed for growers to control. So this is not an uncommon sight across fields, and I would say definitely southwest Manitoba, but this site's starting to move across all Manitoba in general. And then growers number one, probably resistant weed problem would be wild oats. And this year, it was really evident. So this fall, there was lots of panicles above the canopy. So we know that there's going to be quite a large seed bank of wild oats. And it was a really tough year on just herbicides in general through the spring with how cool it was in June. To get the best performance out of your herbicides was going to be a challenge. So there was a lot of breakthroughs, but I would say there's probably just a lot of resistant group 1 and 2 wild oats out in the countryside as well. So products like Avedex and Fortress are going to have a really good fit in this type of scenario. So weed resistance, it doesn't matter what resistance you have, it is a concern. It needs to be managed, but kind of the ones that are top of mind are group 1 and 2 resistant wild oats. And like I mentioned, was kochia. So with group 9 resistant kochia out there, it should be assumed that all kochia is going to be group 2. But with group 4s being put in a lot of cereal products, there's pressure on that group as well. So we need to use as many tools as we have within the industry and as growers to really help fight back the resistance that is a problem. So we like to say, kind of get all the players in the game. So these are all your classification of herbicides from the crop production guide. Here, I'm just gonna, there we go. So group 3, group 15. So your group 3 would be ethylfluralin, trifluralin, which would be Edge and Treflan. Then your group 15, triolate, which would be Avedex, and then also Fortress with triolate in it. I have group 14 circled there as well too. We do have a product Insight. It does have activity on wild oats. It's kind of a unique group 14 in that regard. But really, like I said, group 15 and 3, they're unique modes of action against kind of those problem weeds. So if we can get all the players in the game, use all the tools available to us, we can help fight some of the resistance that is happening out in the field. So when you look at, just for an example, when you look at wheat options for wild oat control, so these are all your options. It's mostly group 1 and 2. If a grower is dealing with, let's say, a group 1 resistance problem, you're cutting your options that you can use on that farm by over half. And if you're a grower that's dealing with 1 and 2 resistance, you really don't have a ton of options to help control that resistance. You have your Avedex and Fortress, so the triolate that's going to be active on those wild oats. So it is something to keep in mind. Like, and that's why a product like Avedex or Fortress is good to get into the rotation to help combat and reduce these seed banks over the years. So taking action with resistance, obviously there's lots of different ways. So I used to work with Bruce Murray, and he always said a lot of little hammers is the best way to kind of control your resistance. So when we're talking about herbicide dose, it's about using a lethal dose. Don't cut rates, record keeping. So knowing where you have these problems in your fields, using a good crop rotation. I would say in Manitoba, for most part, growers have a decent crop rotation. If you can get to 3-4 crops, you're doing quite well. Herbicide rotation, I'll touch on that one more as we move forward. But there's kind of multiple ways to do that. So you can do it across multiple seasons. So using different modes of action through different seasons, like you see in that top picture. You can use a tank mix method where you're using multiple effective mode of action in a tank mix to kind of combat that. And then the third option would be a sequence throughout the season. And this is where kind of the Gowan products fit in. more in like a layering technique. Obviously, cultural options, mechanical options are there too. So culture will be, for example, putting fertilizer in the right spot for the crop to use it at its most effective ways. And then mechanical options like tillage are still effective. And I don't know of any weeds that are resistant to iron yet. But when it comes to layering, so why pre-emergence? So there's a few really good reasons to use them. One is it's going to keep your crop cleaner through the critical weed-free period. And the critical weed-free period is the time when the crop is really its most vulnerable. It's setting itself up for kind of its max yield potential. So you want it to have the least stress on it at that time, so you can get the most bang for your buck at the end of the year. Soil residuals will keep that crop clean when it counts. And we can't rely on post-emergent herbicide programs only, because sometimes environments don't, or Mother Nature doesn't agree with what our plans are, and she's always going to throw a twist in there. So it does allow some flexibility that way as well. And then selection pressure at post timing. So having a good base layer like an Edge or an Avidex, that's going to remove 80+% of the target weeds. In this example, in the slide, you're looking at a wild oat example. So Avidex removing 80% of the wild oats before they emerge. It really takes the pressure off your in-crop herbicide and allows it to do a better job as well too. So it's kind of a 1-2 combination. You'd way rather be spraying the crop or the weeds that are on the right side of the frame versus that mat of weeds on the left. If you were going in crop and you're spraying in those types of conditions, you can expect poor performance because you're not going to get good coverage. There's just too much plant material there for the product to be effective. So a product like a residual product like Edge or Avidex is going to help remove a bunch of those weeds and allowing your other program to take a better effect. And then timing and flexibility. So every spring is different. We've gone through some drier springs, and then we went through a spring. Well, I know in my specific area, we went through a spring in May, June, where it just wouldn't even stop raining, right? So having something down ahead of time allows you to have at least some weed control when the soil's saturated. What we dealt with this year, when you're dealing with just sloughs and lakes in your fields, like no product's going to really work in those. But in times when it's just hard to get back onto the field due to heavy rains, you still have something that's working effectively against those weeds. And it's going to help you manage and be more effective when you are able to get onto that land later. So the group 15, so Avidex, group 3 is your Edge, ethylfluorine, and then Fortress is a combination of triolate, which is Avidex, and then Treflan, trifluralin. So when you're looking at these benefits, and like I said, so from a resistance management standpoint, they're effective. They're unique groups. Growers are starting to incorporate them more. I would say in the past few years, products like Avidex, Edge, Fortress have been increasing. They work on the germinating seed, so growers need to understand how they work, because it's not like your typical chemistry where you're spraying it on your target weed and you can actually see that weed die. It's in the soil. They're working in the soil. They're working on germinating seeds. So you really need to get down, do scrape backs, and understand how these products work. Like I said, it reduces the selection pressure. It's going to provide that early season weed control, which at the end of the day is going to provide yield. And it gives more flexibility on timing. So how does Avidex and Fortress work on wild oats? So shoot control. When I say Avidex, think shoots. And then when I'm referring to Edge, it's more of a root type aspect of it here. But with Avidex, so when we create that herbicide layer in the soil with the pre-emergent or with the residual, excuse me, that herbicide layer, we want the weeds, or we want the wild oats to be growing through that. And that is what is going to be controlling that weed and killing it off. So Avidex is working through the shoot of the wild oat. Fortress is doing the same thing, or the trilate in Fortress is doing the same thing through shoot. But Fortress also has Treflan, a root type product. So it's taking some of the broadleafs through that mechanism as well. What you'll see is some stunting, yellowing. You'll see the odd one poke through that looks sick, but to really get a good idea of the product working, you need to do scrape back. So you peel back the top layer of soil, you look underneath, and then you will see the activity that the product is working. For edge, it's roots. So when it comes to incorporation, we want the ethylfluralin layer, herbicide layer, to be with the weed bank. That way, as it's germinating, the roots are uptaking that herbicide, and essentially they're killing the seed through knocking off the roots, and it won't allow it to get above the surface. So products that come from below the herbicide layer are going to break through, and that's why it's important to find to do your best to get a nice uniform coverage in your most effective layer, and that will depend on kind of the operation. So in Manitoba, you have from 0 till all the way to full till. So it really does kind of change as you get into different operations. So some examples of some wild oats here with the roots being pinched off, and that's just kind of some typical symptoms. So like I said, Avidex and Fortress are shoot activity. Fortress also has root. Edge would be primarily root uptake, and there is a need for incorporation. Incorporation is important because the granules, the active ingredients, they aren't very water soluble, so they don't move very far in the soil. So once they bind to the soil, they're not going to be moving a great distance. It's going to help reduce the potential for volatilization, so losses through the atmosphere. And another good reason for incorporation, especially with group 3, is it reduces the risk of photo decomposition. So having the sun break that chemical down. And then obviously that residual activity on flushing weeds. So weeds that continue to come through the season, products like Edge or Avidex, Fortress, they're going to have effective control for a number of weeks. So typically 4 to 8 weeks, depending on kind of the environment and the situation that it's been put into. So with these 3 products, here's the crops that you can use them in. So Avidex, barley, canary seed, canola, flax, mustard, peas, wheat, no oats the following year. Fortress is everything that Avidex is, just minus the canary seed and small seeded grasses. And then Edge is more for your pulse scenario. So canola, sunflowers, mustard, peas, dry beans, soybeans would be the main ones in the Manitoba market. So on wild oats, so all 3 products do have activity. So Avidex and Fortress are going to be your best products for wild oat control. Edge does have suppression of wild oats on label. But if the driver weed is wild oats, growers really should be looking at Avidex or Fortress. So depending on what crop they're planning on seeding, they can call me or go into the crop protection guide and find which is going to be the best fit. And for that, for the shoot activity, because wild oats are coming from near the surface and they can also be deep germinating, that's why it's best to have Avidex or Triolate as your kind of number 1 controller of the wild oats, because it's going to be typically your wild oats going to be growing up through that herbicide layer. It also responds well to light harrowing, just to incorporate those weed seeds, get them activated, and get them going so they can be controlled by the product. Here's just an example of an untreated strip in the field against some Avidex Microactive. So you can obviously see the difference. And when growers are looking at using these products, like I know check strips aren't super popular, but I encourage you to use a check strip, even if it's just small. If you know you have a bad area, especially when it comes to edge, it's easier to find wild oats treated with Avidex than it is to look for small broadleaf weeds in the soil surface like edge. So I do encourage small check strips. Just it's easier for yourself to prove that it is working. So Fortress, same scenario. So you have your untreated on the left there versus your treated on the right. And then this isn't typically what you're going to see of edge on wild oats, but this is a picture where it really did have good control of wild oats. So untreated on the left, and then the edge working quite well on the wild oats on the right side of it there. So the big thing in those pictures that come to my mind is crop competition, right? So when your crop is competing against a mat of weeds, wild oats, kochia, they're competing for water, they're competing for sunlight, they're competing for nutrients. So what would you rather have? I think everyone knows the answer. You want that crop that's on the right, where it's just your crop taking in all the nutrients, sunlight, water, and you're really giving it its best shot at establishing itself. And that crop's going to be a better competitor against those weeds in the not too distant future. When it gets bigger, starts canopying over, it'll start shading. So there's a lot of good reasons to use residual products up front. Now, if your driver weed is kochia, I'm definitely going to push you to the edge product. You get 6 to 8 weeks of residual control. It doesn't replace a burn off. So weeds can germinate prior to the edge or effluvia becoming active in the soil. So please still do a burn off. You won't regret it. And then same kind of expectations, 80 to 85% control, even when using best practices. The nice thing about kochia is it's got a typical short lifetime in the soil, call it 5 years. It's typically near the soil surface. And that's where edge is going to have a really good advantage on it. So in this picture, a grower noticed that his neighbor had some kochia in his field beside him. So he had some leftover edge. He wanted to do at least just one headland around the field just to help protect him. And he really wished he'd done more. So you can see where he applied the edge, incorporated it. It had really good control on that first pass on the headland. And then he's regretting his decision not to do a few more passes afterwards, as you can see that mat of kochia coming in. So it really does depend on the driver weed that you're going. So wild oats for sure, Avidex and Fortress. If you're into that kochia country and that's your main driver weed, 100% edge, you're still going to get some effective control control of wild oats with edge, but really it's going to be the kochia that it's going after. And then we get into when to apply. And right now, now is the time to be applying your microactive. So whether that's Edge, Fortress, Avidex, now is the time to do it. Let's get our base layer down. Heading into 2025, we know we can have products that we're targeting for a wild oat or kochia management, and really get a head start on 2025. So now is the time to apply. So that's kind of how the products work and where they have a fit. I'm going to move into the application guidelines. So how to make these products work the best for you on your farm. So fall surface application under no-till conditions, but really this can be applied to pretty much any operation. With the microactive formulation, so there's the clay carrier is what's taking that herbicide, that active, onto the field. And we really want to try and penetrate through the stubble and establish particle to soil contact. That's going to, once it binds to the soil, once you get the right conditions, it will activate, it'll create that herbicide layer. And that's what you're looking for proper control. So don't wait, start applying right around now. October 1 is kind of your typical start date. when the temperatures start to be decreasing. Now we've had a really nice fall where temperatures have been really warm and quite nice. So the nice thing about that is harvest is well underway and kind of nearing wrapping up. And it should allow growers opportunity to get onto their fields this fall and get these applications done and get prepped up for 2025. So don't wait. As soon as you can, I'd start getting your microactives on now. If it was a cooler September, and I wouldn't be afraid of starting in late September either. Better to have some product on and know you're going to get some protection moving into the spring, because you just don't know what the spring's going to give you in terms of weather. Do your shallow incorporation before October 15th. And if you run out of time, you can always do an incorporation in the spring if needed. So key with the microactive is to get accurate uniform coverage. And the best way to do that is have it applied by an air boom. So whether that's a floater from a retailer, your own Valmar that you've hooked up to your heavy harrows, or maybe a retail has something that they've configured or purchased. If you get it on the right way, that's the first step into having success. So you want uniform coverage, and then you want to get an incorporation in. So when to apply, just kind of touched on it. Typically it's October 1st is kind of your blanket recommendation. But it really kind of, it depends. If you think you're going to be running up against it on time, and it's September 20th and you have the opportunity to get out and get your microactive on, I wouldn't say no. Yeah, you might lose a little bit due to volatilization, but at least you have something on that field that's going to help moving into the spring, like I said. So what depths and methods of surface incorporation are we looking for? So for the most part, it's shallow harrow incorporation. So for Avidex and Fortress, we're targeting that 1/2 inch. So let's try and establish a uniform layer across that 1/2 inch of soil. That's going to allow those wild oats to grow up through that uniform layer. And then with edge, depending on the operation, you're looking at a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch. So if it's a 0-till to min-till, you're probably in that 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch, trying to establish that uniform layer so that when those weeds germinate, that herbicide will start taking out their root system. Other things to consider, obviously, are soil moisture and stubble conditions, and then fall versus spring harrow. So ideally, if you're applying it this fall, you're going to get it harrowed in this fall for the best incorporation. But if you have to, if the weather changes in an instant, it is possible to do a spring harrow as well too. So in a light stubble situation, so there's good opportunity for particle to soil contact. So if you were looking at a field like this where you can look down at the ground and you can see soil, call it 70% soil that you're looking at, 60 to 70%, I would say, you know what, that would be good for an application. You could have that field float on their microactive, do a harrow afterwards, and it would be good to go for the year. Where it gets a little bit trickier is when you're getting into heavy or bedded stubble. So we were talking about this Lionel earlier, where growers had to cut quite low to the ground this year. They had a lot of trash. So what do they do in these scenarios? And the picture that you sent me, Lionel, was very similar to the picture on the right here. So if you're looking at a field like that, you don't want to be applying your microactive to that. That's a lot of trash for it to get through. Yes, you are. Even if you did a harrow pass after, it's going to get a portion of the microactives down to that soil, and you're going to get particle to soil contact. But you're also going to move a lot around because that straw is so thick, it's going to be moving those particles. So what I would suggest in a scenario like this would be to do a harrow first. Okay, so try and manage the bulk of that straw, get it put into a pile and dealt with. And then the remainder, you're going to have a better field bed to apply your microactive to. So do a harrow, apply your microactive, and then do another light harrow to incorporate it into the soil to get your best results. So what about application in tillage systems? So min till or a vertical till. So let's say a grower went over their field with their vertical tillage. After that vertical till has been done, I would apply the microactive. It's sitting on a good soil bed, and then you can do a light harrow over top. It'll be nicely incorporated, and you'd be good to go. On conventional tillage systems, this is where a bit more of the watch-outs happen. So you really need to avoid lumps. The microactive isn't going to penetrate a lump. So let's say a grower went out, did a conventional till this fall, created a lot of lumps. He might have to wait until the spring to let those lumps kind of overwinter and mellow out through the winter. And then you can go back in the spring and do an application followed by a harrow. Otherwise, you need to find some way to deal with those lumps so that you can get uniform distribution of the product into the soil. So when it comes to Avidex, in your zero, min to conventional tillage, we still want shallow incorporation. The difference in your tillage system with edge, though, is that you really want to match incorporation to the tillage depth. So the reason for that is because in a tillage situation, you're going to be mixing up those weed seeds across that tillage profile. So if you're tilling to 3 inches, you're stirring up the weeds within that 3 inches, and you're going to want your edge to be within that 3 inches as well, so it can be effective on the weeds emerging. Because any weeds that are coming from underneath that herbicide layer will not be controlled by the edge. So here's just some graphics about what I'm talking about. So with Avidex, that top half inch is what you're shooting for. So on the left, you can see kind of your wild oat emerging. Its coleoptile node is in that herbicide layer. It will be affected and treated by the herbicide layer. And the key when you're planting a cereal like wheat or barley with Avidex is you want to get at least a ½ inch below the treated layer. So if you're treating at a ½ inch, you want to be sowing your wheat at an inch to an inch and a quarter, inch and a half, just to make sure that it's safe. Whereas your products like Edge and Treflan, like I said earlier, you want the weeds to be in that treated layer. So this is where it differs between if you're a conventional till grower or a min to zero till grower. So if you're a conventional tiller, you're going to want to put your edge at that tillage depth. Whereas if you're a zero till, that quarter inch to ½ inch on the top layer is really all you'll need. So do I really need to incorporate? The answer is yes. So the microactives are very low water solubility, so it binds tightly to soil. They're not going to move a lot. So you can't just spread it on top of the soil and assume that rain's going to pound it into the ground, or the snow, maybe I'm going to apply late this fall and just let the snow take care of it. It will get it into the soil a little bit, but you're still at risk of volatilization just because it's not going to move that far. So incorporating it will reduce the risk of volatilization, reduce the risk of phyto, and will have better results on your flushing weed activity. So incorporation is key. As you can see from the photo, this is an incorporation miss by the grower, and you can see the difference in the field there. And then moisture. So with any of the pre-emergents, they need soil moisture to activate, right? So how much water or how much moisture is going to activate my Edge, my Fortress, my Avidex? So really, you don't need much. If there is enough moisture for the weed seed to grow, your microactive will be activating. So 5% above wilting point, which would be wilting point would be obviously a drought, and then 5% below field capacity. So if your soils are in absolute saturation, nothing's going to be growing in there, right? So weeds can't really grow in that. The soil can't breathe. So you need at least a 5%. You need some air in the soil to help with the activation. So another common question is residual herbicide and carbon. So a grower burns his field this fall or applies manure. Do not use gallon products in the following spring, or apply them this fall if the growers burn. So with the amount of carbon that's left after burning, it ties up the active ingredients, and you're going to see reduced performance, and you're not going to be happy. And that's the same with your manure. With the amount of high carbon in manure, we just see reduced performance, and it's just not recommended to apply in those scenarios. So what if you miss a fall application? So apply to the field as soon as the conditions allow for the equipment to access. So if you can't get it on the fall, as soon as you can in the spring, excuse me, get out there, apply your microactive, and then get it incorporated. You're looking for, once it's been applied, ideally you're looking 2 to 3 days afterwards to get an incorporation. Obviously, if it's a little bit later, that's fine, but you want to get to seeding, right? So the other thing to think about in the spring with spring activation is that once you apply, there's a potential that weed seeds have already germinated, and it's not going to control the weeds that are already above the ground. So that is where a pre-seed burn off is going to come into effect. And I recommend every time to do a pre-seed burn off, even if you get it applied in the fall. It'll pay dividends for you and the amount of weeds that you'll be dealing with. So seeding considerations. So if you're going to spring apply, when can I seed afterwards? So in the 80s, 90s, and in the crop protection book, those labels haven't been updated in a long time. It says 10 to 14 days on your Avidex Fortress, 10 days on your Edge microactive. But really, I would say 7 to 10 days is probably good on your microactives. If you're using Avidex liquid, then you can apply as close to seeding as possible, just to help get that incorporated. And you don't want it to have any volatilization take away that product. And like I said, use that pre-seed burn down to control any emerged weeds in the spring. And then once it's incorporated, you'll have that residual component. And then follow the seed depth as per recommended label practices. So cereals, Avidex and Fortress, when planting cereals, you're below the treated layer of Avidex and Fortress by a 1/2 inch. And then for broadleaf crops at any desired depth. So for Avidex, Fortress, or Edge. So if you're seeding canola into Fortress, you can go a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch. It's whatever your preference is. There will be no loss there. So you're looking at 80 to 85% control and should last 4 to 6 weeks if done right. So what are the rates? So it really does matter on organic matter, soil type. For the most part in Manitoba, I would say we have decent soil, organic matter for the most part. And our soil types are fairly similar. So there's not a lot of change, but I'll get into it in a second. And then it depends on the crops being seeded. Fall rates are generally higher than spring rates. It's taking into account that you are going to have a touch of loss, but it's kind of the best time to do it in the fall as well. So Avidex herbicide. So depending on your organic matter, you're looking for, and your crop, so 14 to 17 kilograms, or that's 12.5 to 15 pounds an acre. And if you're going into your canola flax, you can up that rate a little bit as well too. It's really kind of going to be up to you. And it really comes into the situation on what's your weed pressure like in the field. Is it really heavy? Like if you're going into a Liberty Link canola field next year and you have group 1 resistant wild oats at a really heavy rate, at a heavy pressure, I would definitely be looking at doing the higher rate, help control more of those wild oats. which is going to allow your Liberty to be a little more effective on that as well too. So Fortress, I would say probably pretty standard would be 12.5 pounds across Manitoba. Well, that's, yeah, wheat, barley, canola. So the nice thing about Fortress too is you get your green and yellow foxtail as well as your wild oat. And then edge. So typically in the fall, I'd be saying put edge on at 12.5. If you're on some really, really light land, maybe you want to go into your 10 pounds, but it'd have to be pretty light, sandy land. In general, I'd say 12.5 pounds is a pretty good standard recommendation. And then you're going to you can see the weeds that it controls on the right-hand side. So your kochia, your buckroot, your buckwheat, your red root, pigweed, lamb's quarters, kind of your main broadleaf weeds that everyone's dealing with, but it also gets your green and yellow foxtail. The one caveat is edge won't work on any green foxtail that is already resistant to group 3. There are pockets, there's not many, but there are pockets of group 3 resistant foxtail, green foxtail. And it does have some activity on your wild oats as well too. Moving into some label updates. So for Avidex Microactive, not that this is really going to affect Manitoba too much, but lentils and chickpeas are being added. It's been submitted for lentils and chickpeas for Avidex Liquid and Fortress. And then I believe Alan talked to you guys last year about edge for seeding flax. So fall application of edge for seeding flax. They're still going through the submission process, so that's not fully on label yet, but it is going to be coming probably for the next season. And then to kind of wrap up, just in general, what I talked about. So use your microactive granular formulations. And the key is to get good soil contact. So use a harrow, incorporate it, have it be shallow. For the most part, when you're using your min to zero till operations, do not miss out on applying the burn off product. A product like Insight can be tank mixed with Roundup. Be used in the spring, give you really good control of your kind of your broad spectrum weeds as well as early season wild oat control. And then do your in crop to complete your layering. Don't use these products and think that they're the silver bullet to your farm. You still need to use your other incorporation methods and control methods. So applying a edge this fall does not mean that you can skip your in-crop application of herbicide. And then really setting the right expectations. So with our products, 80 to 85% control of your target weeds. So let's call it kochia for edge, wild oats for Avidex Fortress. And if you can, leave a check strip just to prove to yourself that it is working. Otherwise, definitely get me out. I can help you do scrapebacks, help you understand the product a bit more. And the other thing too is there's no warranty on these products. So you want to be doing you want to be putting these products on right the first time, so you're having the best chance of success with them. So with that, I'll open it up to questions. So yeah, shoot, go ahead.
Okay, Wes, that was a good presentation. A lot of really good information there. A couple questions that have come in. One, you mentioned about moisture, and you talked about the slide, kind of if it gets too wet, you got some product on already. Will too much moisture move that layer down in the soil?
Sure, my mic. You can still hear me, right? Yeah. So no, it's not. The microactives don't move through the soil or through the water profile. So like the water is not going to push it down. It will a little bit, but it's just more the time degradation that's going to affect the effectiveness of that herbicide. So if it's sitting in water for a month, like we've seen in some cases out our way, that microactive is slowly breaking down through that time. But But if you're sitting in, let's say, 5 days of rain, and then you're back on the field in a few days, no, it's not going to push it down into the soil profile any further. That product will reactivate and get going, and it'll be effective again. Weeds that have popped up through that time period where maybe it was not activated, they're going to escape. But the ones that are germinating once the product is active will be taken care of again.
Okay, one of the things that we've been dealing with is water hemp, and any of your products you'd recommend for producers that may be facing some issues there?
Yeah, so Edge would be a good option for water hemp. So the one tricky thing with water hemp is it can kind of germinate later in the season too. Like it takes a little bit for it to germinate. So, but yes, Edge would be the best, I would say, for that. Yeah, and then when you're dealing with water hemp, that's scary, but Edge is going to be a good tool. It's not going to be the solution, but I would say Edge up front, followed by good practices in crop. I think you can probably get that under control in some years. Yep.
Okay. And one of the things that I kind of taken away from the presentation was that this is the beginning of your weed control. You're recommending the producers are still going to have to spray in crop to get weed control, right?
100%. So let's take Avidex for an example in your canola crop. So if you're going after wild oats and you're spraying Avidex, yes, it will control or get a good number of those wild oats in your Liberty Link canola, but you're still going to have to rely on the Liberty to get out your broadleafs, and even clean up some of the wild oats that you missed, right? So yeah, it doesn't replace an in-crop application. It will reduce the weed bank and the amount of weeds that you're targeting in crop, which should make that in-crop herbicide more effective because it's dealing with less weeds. You're going to have better crop competition. So like I said, it's a tool in a layering system that is going to be effective to help overall control your weeds on your farm.
Okay, and another question just come in. How do higher disturbance seeding passes, example paired row openers, impact effectiveness of these products?
So at seeding?
Yeah, I would imagine, yeah, at seeding, yeah.
Yeah, so if you have it incorporated prior to seeding, it shouldn't impact. Sometimes you will see where the shanks went through and you'll see where it kind of disturbed or flipped over some soil. So you can get some weeds come up in the seed furrow, but for the most part, it shouldn't impact it that well. If you get a good uniform layer, it should be minimal.
Yeah, you see some producers that are one pass seeding are getting more wider openers so they can distribute the fertilizer. So I guess probably that goes back to this one. The chance of moving more dirt around is definitely there. So you're saying it shouldn't be a problem as long as you've got it on and it had a chance to kind of form that layer.
Yeah, like if you're really disturbing, like if it's a wide opener, like there definitely is the chance that you're going to be moving that herbicide layer. And I would expect to see some escapes, but for the most part, like it really depends on kind of your operation. Most growers are going to be seeding shallow with canola, but it'd be more on kind of like your wheat where I'd be a bit more concerned on that. If it's throwing a lot of dirt, then yeah, I'd expect to see a bit more lack of control, but it should still be effective for the most part.
Okay, and I guess that would go for the other question that came in. It was, I think you answered it in your presentation, but it was regarding applying fall fertilizer. So this would go on after your fall fertilizer application, right?
How's the fertilizer being applied? Is it being
It
floated
said
on?
NH3, it said. So
Oh, okay, yeah. So if you're going to do an anhydrous pass, Yeah, I would apply the anhydrous, and then I would apply my microactive, and then hair over top.
Okay. And another question just come in. Have you personally seen any edge applied to land that has had water hemp on it? Was there any control?
Me personally, no, I have not seen that. It has been used in the States, and if you would like, I can probably get Mike. Mike Grenier would have more experience with that. I can get
Okay,
Mike
yeah,
to maybe follow up with you on that one.
sure. Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah.
would be good if he could fire off an email or something, and then even if he's had some pictures or something, and then this way we could maybe put it on next week's crop talk or something.
Sure. Just have him email you, Lionel, or is there someone
Sure, yeah,
specific? Or yeah,
myself
you.
would be great. Yeah, Mike should have my
Yeah.
information, I think. Yeah,
Okay.
or you have it, Wes. Good. Right now, I don't see any other questions, Wes. So I would like to thank you for coming on today. It's real timely topic for us right now, and it's a lot more interest is becoming of those kind of products. So it's nice for you to give us a little bit of an update.
Yeah, no, thank you. Appreciate the time and the opportunity. And yes, we've had a really good run on Avidex and Edge this fall. So
What's supply like?
supply is good.
Okay.
The Fort Sask production facility has been running pretty much full tilt. So for the orders that we had, we will be able to fill the Edge orders. We've got lots of Fortress still remaining. And then yes, Avidex is they're just completing the Avidex run right now, I believe. So I think we're in good shape across all. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Wes, and we'll be talking to you, I'm sure, in the future.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you very much. And yeah, feel free to call me. I put up my number and my email. So if you ever want to do a scrape back or a field walk in the spring, just let me know.
Yeah, and it was on the last slide there, so everybody will be seeing that as well. So
Okay.
good. Okay, I guess to end it today, we'll go through just a little bit of a crop update. The crop report will be coming out sometimes today, so just a little bit of an update from myself here. Spring cereal harvest, probably about 90% complete right now across the province. Some areas are complete. Some areas still have some later seeded crop that still coming off. There's still, I've seen some barley out in some fields yet, and I've seen some late seeded oats still out there. Probably fields that were maybe a little bit too wet this spring that got seeded and maybe had initial intentions of maybe putting them into green feed or making it into green feed, but with a better fall here, maybe they're going to take it to harvest. So cereal crops are just about done. As mentioned in previous crop talks, the yields are average to above average with good quality. The canola harvest has been going pretty good this last little while here, and I would say we're about 3/4 done right now. It's quality still remains good. Talking to some producers, they're actually saying it's maybe not weighing up as much as it has in previous years. So that may be some of the factor where it may be some of the yields have maybe not been as great. So the yields are average to maybe a little bit below average in some areas, but overall the harvest is going pretty good, and I think probably by the end of this week we'll be wrapping up the canola harvest. There has been some flax been started. I've seen some producers actually swathing some flax, which kind of gives you a bit of chill off all the winds we've had lately. But it's the straw is green and just wanting to get it to dry down as fast as they can, I guess. Soybeans harvest began probably the beginning of the week here, maybe on the weekend, and so producers are going at it. Looking pretty good so far. Yields are pretty decent. I would say right now we're at least going to be average to maybe slightly above average in some areas. About a third done, I would estimate. And only comment I got from some producers is it got pretty dry, so it's was making it difficult harvesting or getting the combine set good without having to do too much damage to the seed. Guys were talking about cracking the seeds, so I know a couple guys that actually even stopped harvest just and maybe we're going later at night and not harvesting during the day, just you get some humidity to so make it a little bit easier on the sample. I'm going to save the crop scouting panel question till next week, and these are the, as we get harvest done, guys are going to want to be knowing what they have in their bins. So I'm going to keep putting this up until we are done having to do our harvest production report. So there's how to figure out what you got in the bin, and that's how to figure out what you have in the peaks or your cones if you have some in a cone at the bottom of the bin. Our hay listing program is still there, are still up and running. So if you got hay for sale, definitely give the 1-800 number a call, and we can get you on there with all your information. Crop residue burning program is running, so definitely check every day if you're going to be doing some burning to see if you your area is eligible. I actually seen somebody burning on Sunday. I think it was the real windy day, or was it Monday? But anyways, it was one of those windy days. I seen somebody burning, so I just couldn't believe that one. The crop extension specialists. There's our names and locations and phone numbers. So if you have any questions as we're getting closer to the end of the crop year, or if we're getting into preparing for next year, give any one of us a call. We can give you a hand. Our livestock people, they're getting real busy now with talking to producers regarding feeding for the coming winter and just getting ready for the winter. They're also planning some meetings. There's going to be a good one coming up in Portage here. So there's the information. And if you want to register, it's working on the farm with hands-on science. It's going to be held in Portage, like I mentioned. So if you want more information, you could give one of the livestock specialists a call. Another event that's going to be happening at MBFI, which is just north of Brandon, is moniating forages to improve quality. And this one is a really good course because it gives you just more information of if you're wanting to either ammoniate feed or poor quality feed or straw. And it's going to be happening on Wednesday, October 9th, so next Wednesday. So it starts at 1:30 and goes till 3:30. So if you're interested in something like that, definitely take that in. The MASC offices, there's their phone numbers and locations. So if you got any questions regarding your harvest and reporting your yields, give them a call. And there's my information and Lori's information. So if you've got any questions, give us a call. If you got any topics you'd like us to cover in previous or future crop talks, give us let us know, and we will definitely take it into advice and see if we can get it on. So once again, thanks Wes for being on today, and we'll see you next week, October the 9th.